Hey guys, GLHF here with an IMBAbuilds audio walkthrough. This time you'll be nailing down Zerg like NaNiwa with his Zealot Immortal all in. In a second I'll ask you to pause the video while you start a game against an easy AI Zerg opponent. Once the game loads, pause it and come back here. I'll then give you a countdown and you can resume your game. Ready? Pause the video. Welcome back. Get ready to unpause the game and start your first probe in 10 seconds. Four, 3, 2, 1, go. You just started your first probe. Keep building them. You'll build your first pylon after starting your 9th probe. You should have just started your 9th probe. When you get close to 100 minerals, pull out a probe to warp in a pylon near your nexus, then return it to mining. Your pylon should finish around the same time as your 10th probe. As soon as you can, start an 11th probe and chrono boost it out. Chrono boost your nexus again. When your 12th probe finishes, use it to warp in a gateway before mining. You should have just started your 14th probe. When you get 75 minerals, warp in an assimilator. At 100 minerals, warp in a pylon. Also, your assimilator is done. Put 3 probes on it and chrono boost the nexus. Your gateway is almost done. As soon as it's finished, start building a cybernetics core. You should be at 18 supply. Chrono boost the nexus. At 19 supply, start a Zealot at your gateway. This Zealot is for defense against early Zerglings and should be cancelled if none show up by the time you expand. If you're in lower leagues, skip this Zealot altogether to make sure you make your timings. Send a probe to the natural now. Your cyber core is done. Cancel your Zealot, start your natural nexus, and halt probe production after this one. If you'd encountered Zerglings by this point, you'd want to finish the Zealot and delay the expo. Start a mothership core at the main and chrono boost it out. Also, start researching warp gate. Warp in a pylon at the natural. When the mothership core finishes, resume probe production. Use the mothership core to poke into your opponent's base and scout his build. Your build will work as long as the Zerg has a 3rd hatchery. Chrono boost your nexus now. At 100 gas, warp in a robo facility. You should be at 26 supply. Warp in a forge at the natural wall. Warp in a gateway at the natural wall now. Your nexus is almost done. Transfer 4 more probes to the natural so that you have 5 mining there and set your main's rally point to the natural's minerals. You should have 18 probes on minerals at the main. Chrono boost the main. Start a Zealot at the gateway now. The forge is done. Start +1 ground weapons as soon as possible. When the robo finishes, start building a warp prism. Warp in a pylon at the natural wall. Chrono boost both nexi now. Warp in a pylon at the natural wall. When warp gate research finishes, transform your gateways into warp gates. Your warp prism should finish around 6:45. Once it's out, start an Immortal. Use the warp prism to fake aggression and scout your opponent's build. As a benchmark, you should have 1 Zealot, a mothership core, and 35 probes by this point. Start a pylon now and chrono boost the robo. Also, halt probe production once the current ones finish. Warp in another pylon now. When your first Immortal finishes, start a second one and chrono boost the robo. Warp in 5 more gateways as you get the resources. Chrono boost the robo again. Once the Immortal finishes, start an observer and push out. This should be around the 8-minute point. As you push out, wall off your natural to avoid a base trade, possibly even building some cannons at the wall. Chrono boost the robo and rally the observer to your army. Start warping in Zealots underneath your warp prism. When your new gateways finish, transform them into warp gates. Continue warping in 7 Zealots at a time until you've broken through the Zerg. Don't forget to make more pylons and chrono boost your gateways when needed. When attacking, keep your Zealots ahead of the robo units to tank damage. Along with warping in Zealots, use the warp prism to pick up damaged Immortals when necessary. If you encounter roaches or mutas, you can warp in some stalkers for extra damage. It's an all-in, so keep pushing and killing the Zerg. Good luck and have fun!